Make some noise, and we're live.
Welcome to Psychotech Live!
Psychotechnologies
Happy New
live.
Year!
Woohoo!
Happy New Year!
Yeah. So for the podcast for the or the whatever we're doing for the listeners, it's New Year's Day for me, and it's already like well into the year for Eliot. And I drank a bunch last night, so I will be a little bit less brain celly.
But I want to know how long after the event, like after New Year's, can you still say Happy New Year?
Maybe till Valentine's Day. Is that a thing?
Is this like you put up the Christmas decorations immediately after Halloween? Sort of thing? Like it's New Year's until Valentine's, and then it's Valentine's until, I don't even know what's after that.
April Fools.
April Fools, right, okay.
Yeah. And then, but April Fools, like you don't want to be like you don't want to be like doing that early, because otherwise people will know. So you gotta always like want everyone to forget about it except for you, and then you have got that edge, so you can like prank people, but they can't prank you.
It's okay, trickster. Let's go into that one. So,
like the archetype.
yeah, archetypes, psychotypes.
Okay.
Right. So April Fools, right? You play pranks on your friends and your families and your, but the archetypes. So archetypes are, I think they started with Jung.
You probably predate that. Like I think like the Greek and Roman gods probably count as something akin to archetypes.
Yeah, but I don't know how well they knew they were using psychotechnologies back then. They were just doing what they were doing. But Jung really, or Marie von Franz, who was a student of Jung, she really delved into archetypes. She looked at archetypes in fairy tales, and archetypes in various cultures. But specifically the archetype of the trickster. So,
like Loki.
yeah, like Loki, like the coyote, like the bunyip, like I think Pan's a trickster too.
Yeah.
There's tricksters in many cultures.
Yeah, I do feel like tricksters play the flute, like they do their tricks. Because like a pianist can't be like a trickster because they got this whole piano they have to like deal with.
Right. There's something like bard, like musical, like around the archetype of the trickster. Right. So an archetype is it's like a mask that you can put on, or it's a way of looking at the world that you can see other people drop into, and that can be like the king, the trickster, the royalty in general, the fool, the peasant, the child, the adult, the parent. There's all of these frames that we can take on other people and like block them in and structure and be like, I'm the boss of you, and so I'm going to be mean to you because I'm the boss. And the trickster is a very interesting one because a whole bunch of people have written about it and about how trickster is very important for defining reality. There's a book, Trickster Makes This World, and it's about 1,000 pages long, talking about trickster and the various tricksters and the way that in many mythologies there's the realm of the gods and there's the realm of the humans, and the trickster lives on the boundary between the gods and the humans and does things like steals fire from the gods and gives it to the humans. And for that we owe trickster basically everything, because trickster brought us the fruits of the gods. And in that sense, trickster is a very important archetype because it questions the boundaries between things. And we've also got the Festival of Fools in Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is today is the day we turn the world upside down. who's the king of the fools, and that is of course Quasimodo in the story.
Mm-hmm.
But there's even in Judaism there's Purim, which is a dress-up festival. Lots of cultures have this. There's Halloween as the Day of the Dead. There's all of these like turn things upside down, reverse the culture, turn things on their head, question them.
And yeah. So that's interesting. So you got this like trickster archetype and like these trickster events where we sort of celebrate this idea of tricking people, gods, reality.
Right, April Fool's Day. Yes,
April Fool's Day. That's the day of the trickster in Western culture. Like Halloween a little bit, but in like a different way. And yeah, so like what do you think like the trickster kind of represents as an archetype? Or like what do you think its purpose or its value? Like what if we were to translate this into like a more modern context? I guess that would be like what aspect does the trickster play within a healthy ecosystem or healthy system?
Right. So okay, there's so the Emperor's New Clothes. Short version of the story: the Emperor goes to his tailor and says, "Make me perfect clothes." And so the tailor, fearing for his life, decides he can't possibly make any clothes, and so he decides to tell the king that he's made clothes, but they're invisible. They're only visible to those who are pure of heart. And the king, not wanting to be foolish, of course, puts on the invisible clothes, being worried that he can't see them, but believing that he's pure of heart and therefore he must pretend. And the king wanders through the town naked, invisible clothes, until one kid says to him, "But you're not wearing any clothes." And that's when everything falls apart. Now it's that kid who was actually living in the normal world.
Is he the trickster archetype? Or I think the clothes maker is the trickster archetype.
Perhaps, but so the thing about what the kid could do is the kid could turn the story on its head because the kid was just seeing things how it is. And the trickster is the one who can see the world as it is and question things. So if you think of the court jester, the court jester's job was to make people laugh, or hopefully comedian's job, make people laugh and then think.
Right? It's like share with people hard truths in ways that they're happy to hear. I think that's what like a really good comedian.
So there's something super important about what the trickster can do in naming what needs to be named and bringing out what needs to come out. And in a lot of the old trickster stories, in the coyote stories, he wants to catch a fish, and so he turns himself into he makes a net, and then he turns himself into a fish in order to lead other fish into the net or something, and then he gets caught in his own net. And there's often in the trickster archetype, the trickster actually dies or loses or has their head chopped
hoisted
off
by his own petard kind of situation.
Right, because he was too tricky. And so that's part of the trickster archetype as well. So I wouldn't recommend being a trickster all the time because you will meet your own demise. But there's something where trickster brings the fire of the gods. Trickster does something incredible and breaks boundaries that need to be broken.
Yeah, it seems like when there's like this large imbalance between like two different spheres of influence, let's say, and then like the trickster as in like can go between them and sort of amortize what's happening. Like what you're saying with the taking fire from the gods, where it's like, well, gods have all this fire and humans don't, and then he could just like steal it and take it, and the gods get upset, but like,
what can they do?
Okay, well, they can do things, right? But
punish the trickster, but he still stole the fire.
Yeah, he still stole the fire. Like, we still got fire at the end of the day, and that's still huge. I do feel sad for this trickster because I imagine that like he's still a trickster. People don't want him around. But like, I don't know, like humanity, you know, we kind of need these people, even though we don't like them.
They irritate. They definitely irritate the world order the way it is.
Yeah, but that's
And people in charge don't like it. But if that something flips, maybe people will like it.
yeah, yeah. It's flip floppy from like when I'm thinking of tricksters, I'm thinking of flip floppy people. And I'm imagining that they're probably looking at when I'm tricking people, everybody else is flip floppy, right? Like, if I'm gonna prank someone, it's got to be like, you know, like it's like very careful because, you know, you do something slightly wrong and now, like the prank goes wrong and everybody just hates you, right?
Yeah, there's Kanye West is often. There's a guy named Jonathan Pageau who is very symbolic and likes archetypes, and in his conversations he talks about Kanye West being a big trickster archetype, and sort of making fun of and playing into that trickster. And specifically, people talk about clown world, right? Our society, politics, we live in clown world, right? Which means that the trickster sees the world upside down. So if we live in clown world, the tricksters will be being very serious, and because they can, they see the world upside down.
Interesting. Okay, this is. I was gonna go somewhere else with this, but this is actually very interesting. So you're yeah. So like, let's say like politics or the like culture war stuff has gotten like crazy out of hand. So like, because there's a lot of stuff like I think people do for like shock value. But like South Park got really started real well and like that shock value, and they used to be like the clowns kind of stuff. But like now there's almost like a thing like Kanye West, when he's doing whatever he's doing, everyone's fine with it. But as soon as he puts on like a MAGA hat and starts talking about values, like people lose their shit. And yeah, and they don't take it seriously. Yeah, like if somebody's gonna be like, I like Trump, people don't take that seriously. Like they think it's
some sort of commentary. Because no one enough would actually like Trump.
Yeah, nobody actually like, just like those populist people, but not like real people.
Right.
like yeah, like, you know, they haven't put things together quite. But yeah, like it's like always disbelief, and like I never thought of that as like, if you're just like, yeah, I'm a conservative and I believe in police and like all, like just like these basic things, like you have become like a clown in this, because like you're not playing the game. Like we're all playing this clown game and you're not playing it, so like you're obviously just fucking with us. And like that seems almost like it switches back to the boy who's just like shows up, he doesn't know what's going on, and he's just like, why is the emperor naked? Like, weird. Or like not even why, but he's just like, haha, you're not wearing any clothes, right? Because like he's a kid, he probably also like likes to not wear clothes, and then, you know, like his mom makes him wear clothes, and he's like, if I was the emperor, I wouldn't have to wear clothes. And then he sees the emperor with no clothes on, right? So it's not even like, he's just like oblivious to everything. He just sees what is, and like that's, I guess, also the other side of the trickster in that situation. That's really cool. Like you have the one trickster who's like, I could just get away with this. Like I could just say stuff, and they'll just, like, if I use this terminology, they'll just like get sucked into my world, and like now they have to listen to me, because otherwise, like, they're in this like situation. I guess like for me, like when I'm projecting that situation, like what's that ecosystem like that someone could come in and do this? It's one where everyone is like, it's like image matters more than reality, sort of.
And that itself is a clown world, right?
Yeah.
They're all trying to appear in some way.
Yeah. That becomes like, yeah, that becomes a clown world, and then it's not even, and then like they're not even good at doing the image, right? So then the kid can just see through it. But they've sort of, it's like strategy, counter strategy, counter strategy, counter strategy until you get to a point where like people who don't know what's going on will just like win. Yeah, so it's kind of like you kind of got I got both these characters are trickster characters. They're just on different sides of the equation. One is coming into like this corrupt system, and then the other one is coming into this like where like it's just gone too far. Or would you say that? Like, would you say the kid's a trickster? Because he's not really tricking. Like he's like clown like. It's like almost like an exact opposite of a trickster.
Yes. Perhaps maybe sometimes the trickster is more like opposite than it is a trick. Like the trickster just says what is the opposite.
Yeah.
Like can name what is the opposite. Like as you said, living in progressive times and places, to say I'm conservative, I like the police is hilarious and ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like a caricature of a white person.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, there's the caricature of the other side of I don't know what gender I am.
Yeah,
and that's
all. That's a thing, though.
Contentious, right? You're not allowed to say that in contemporary society at the moment.
That you don't know what gender you are?
As a joke, you're not allowed to say this.
Well, you can't say it as a joke because there are people that are like it's not a joke. Like you might not know what gender you are. like it's not funny. Like you're just saying it. It's like I'm black. Like well, there are black people. Like like it's not a joke. Like it's like I'm not wearing pants during like COVID time, right? Like. Well, people don't wear pants. Like, it's not really a joke. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, and I feel like that does cause, like, a lot of mental health stuff that, like a little boy would just show up and be like, I'm a boy, and, like, they're just done with it. Like, that's just it, right? Like, they're done. Like, what does it mean to be a boy? I don't know. Like, I'll explore that. Or like I don't care, like I'm just a boy. That's the end of it, right? Like, like that's just their whole thing. Like they just like that's it. They're done. And then you're like back to simplicity.
I see a lot of structures in society. We build a lot of like this is how it is, the hierarchy of management or political systems that tell us what to do and. Those can get overloaded and bloated. And there's lots of boundaries and lots of forms and lots of paperwork. And the trickster can sort of see through all that mess and, like you said, return to simplicity. Yeah.
And I think it's like not, like experientially for me, I think when I'm relating or thinking about these guys, like it's not like I'm necessarily, like sometimes I can like see through bullshit, but a lot of the times I'm just like, why are you doing any of this? Like, just don't do that, do this.
What comes to mind is, I don't remember which country it is, but the man who set himself on fire on the steps of the police station. I think it was like Pakistan, possibly. He
sounds like a Buddhist thing.
There was that as well. That was in protest, but this was he owned a little like a small store or something, and then people broke in and stole stuff from him, and then he went to go to the police, and then they told him that they need to bribe them in order for them to help, and then he broke, and he got so mad at the system that he lit himself on fire, and there was like days of protests all around the country and civil unrest because he represented people who didn't like the corrupt system they were living under, where he just couldn't catch a break on that particular day.
Wow.
But again, he did like the opposite. He could illuminate some structure of society that was broken with his actions.
Yeah, and like act as sort of like a shelling point where people can, or like now is the time to get upset, where we can like coordinate around this. Yeah, that's hard, man. There are people that live on the edge like that, and like something like that will break them.
Mm. It's it's hard to like. Did he do the right thing? He did what he thought was right, and changed his society after his death, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, now you're asking if what he did was right is like now it's like opening like a whole new like can of worms.
Mm.
Like,
Well, the point is he did something opposite to his society, and it caused a lot of it caused a big
yeah,
change.
he did something opposite to like the narrative, but what's true to the reality.
Yeah.
And like that's a thing, because like that's the thing that actually stresses me out a lot is when the narrative is like very different than reality.
Hmm.
Like I don't mind a little bit different because like whatever.
Can you give some examples?
There's one that comes to mind that I really shouldn't talk about, but maybe I'll talk about in vague terms.
Or
Uh,
sometimes cults can have like
yeah,
their
cults can definitely do this. I think it's a big one where like there's like they're like saying a thing and you like come in and you're like it's not exactly, but like you're onto something, right? Like you're trying to talk about something that's very hard to articulate and understand the patterns of, and you're looking at it from a different angle, and you're not exactly right, and you're trying to do it, and like okay, like that's sort of everyone, right? Like anytime I see someone working on a problem, they're not framing it right, they're not attacking it right, like, but like that's part of working on a problem is that like you're not getting it right the first time. If you got it right the first time, it wouldn't be a problem. And like some things are hard and they're worth working at, even if it's not accurate. And if you're only going to be able, like, if I'm only going to work, at least me, like, and I think other people are the same way. If I'm only going to be working with people I 100% agree with, I'm never going to be working with anyone.
Mm.
So there's always like some leeway, but then that leeway sometimes starts to grow, and you're like, no, this is not real. Like, this is, but if you think about it from this perspective and that perspective, and they start to like sort of like create their own cycle of reality. Some people have this power of it's like a reality distortion field, is what we've been calling it, or they'll like come in with like hype, and then you get into that world, and like technically speaking, it's not necessarily wrong, right? Because they hype, they get people coalesce around stuff, and then they start to work, right? And so it's like, oh, the problem is actually harder than we originally thought, but we're all excited about it, so it kind of cancels out. But then like when they like, if they see it working, and then like this is their tool of getting things done, then you start to run into problems very quickly, because reality just stops agreeing with you, and then they have to like create this other reality that everyone in the world is wrong, and we're the only ones that see the truth.
Mm.
And then you're in a cult. Even if it's not like technically a cult, even if it's like a group of friends that like think everyone is bad, or politics, or even like a way of doing business, or like whatever, like any group of people get together and sort of create their own reality. So yeah, recently I just left a group like that, where it was like, it was like there, and like people inside it were like everyone knew it wasn't going well, and like nobody could really do anything because they're all just sort of talking at cross purposes. And I just kind of had enough with it. Like it wasn't a cult, but it was just very ineffective and like a waste of time, and like kind of sucks in your energy.
What would it have taken for that group to be productive?
There were a lot of leverage points. So like I don't know exactly how to, like, I can tell you like what would have taken for it to like, I know that if I come in, I could have, if I came in, I'm like, okay, like I could have come in and been like, okay, here's the Constitution. This is how we're doing things. This is how we're making decisions. This is how things are. You know, like I'm going to run this brainstorming session. So we're going to get a direction, and then we're going to do it. And, but like they wouldn't have listened to me, or at least one guy there wouldn't have listened to me, and then that would have just like shut down the whole thing. So there was no like roles. Like nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody felt like they could make any decisions, and they're all like afraid of pissing each other off. It's very like liberal problems. Yeah, like nobody's willing to like put in the effort and like take risks and stuff, or at least like back me up when I take the risk, which is like the minimum requirement.
Have you ever heard of, to bring in a psychotechnology here, the 4 fields of conversation? You can Google it
vaguely, but we can. Is this like
This is a model that comes from.
This is the integral thing, like the I, we, or whatever.
No, different one. That's the 4 quadrants.
4 quadrants.
Close. This is the 4 fields of conversation.
Okay.
From.
Here, I'll Google it.
John Kotler.
What?
John P. Kotler. Let me look up that name real quick.
Of
conversation.
Otto Scharmer.
Otto Scharmer, yeah.
Theory of generative dialogue. Fields include talking nice, talking tough, reflective dialogue, and generative dialogue.
Right. So we got the diagram. If you go to Google Images, you get the same diagram several times over.
Yeah. Let's get the simple one to start with.
I'm gonna throw it up, and then I can explain.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Not yet.
It's on the. You're not watching the stream, right? Yeah,
Alright. Click on our link.
I'm gonna get a better.
Just start talking because the diagram's the same. In the bottom left, we sort of start in the bottom left corner of the diagram, which is the talking nice.
Alright, so talking nice. So downloading politeness. Yeah, everyone was stuck in that quadrant.
Right.
Mostly. And then they just randomly do like the talking tough.
Right. I don't like what you're doing. They're like, this isn't very fun.
No, it's not even that. It's like trying to take charge. You know when like people are just like kind of doing stuff and someone's like, okay, I'm gonna just take charge, right? But they kind of half-ass it. And then when people see them doing it, then everyone else is like, oh, now I can do this. So like everyone kept trying to do all these things all at the same time. I think.
Yep, sounds about right. So we start in this bottom left, and we're like small talk and talk about the weather and make nice, and then what we need to do is move to the bottom right, which is talking tough. Some of these diagrams have an arrow on it. Talking tough. You have to be. Let's get serious. Let's do something interesting. Let's get down to business.
Yeah.
We need to get.
We should talk about that movie sometime. But yeah.
Yep. And the hard part is that the good stuff is on the other side of that. We need to get from talking nice through talking tough to, and then the next place we move to is the reflective dialogue. So it may take a talking tough moment for someone to be like, huh, that makes me think. In order to like start deepening, and people get there by accident. With a bit of practice, like, if I look at this conversation, we started at New Year's Eve, April Fool's, followed by trickster. Let's talk about the archetypes. Like suddenly we were somewhere interesting, because I'm like deliberately moving the conversation into interesting places. That's a skill of like reflecting on what about that, or what's interesting about that, and going deeper. And then the place where we really want to get to in conversation is the fourth one, the upper left, the reflective flow, magical, liminal, blah, 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 beautiful space of fascinating experience. But it takes going from talking nice to talking tough to reflective to shared reflective experience. And it's a skill to navigate this terrain of different types of conversation.
Interesting. So like the talking nice is like you start with like a little bit of small talk, and then you're like
the weather, yeah.
And then it's like, okay, here's the things that we have to talk about. Like here's what's like.
Well, let's get to the agenda, or it doesn't even have to last very long. We're talking tough, but some people cannot break out of small talk. And it's because they're too unwilling to be talking tough. And then some people will get stuck in the like complaint session. We're too busy complaining about everyone else, and no one likes it, but we don't know how to get elsewhere. Like, how do I
complaining would be what? Talking tough or?
Talking tough. Like, I am the greater victim here. Well, I had such a bad time over here, getting here. The traffic was so bad. And they're like...
Yeah, I feel like that's like... that's like trying to move into the talk tough, but like getting stuck and then talking nice. Right? Like, because if you're complaining, like complaining is like talking nice masquerading as talking tough. Where... Like, oh, my life is so bad, it's all these things. Like, those aren't tough. Like, those are tough things you're talking about. But the conversation is not tough. The conversation is easy. And it is nice. And then you can't get into... This is actually really interesting. Then you can't get into the reflective dialogue. Because you're not... Like, tough is like, okay, like, we have a problem. Right? And like, do you actually know what the problem is, or are you just saying you know what the problem is? And like that's like you're starting to put like egos on the line. But like if your ego's not on the line, then you're not able to get into reflexive dialogue. Like you're not able to like inquiry in like a way that's like on that level. Yeah, and then if you can't inquiry, you can't generate dialogue.
Yep, this is why I like this beautiful theory. And I realize there's a little trickster thing in here, right? The trickster can take us through from talking nice to talking tough to reflective. The trickster makes that movement. The comedian, who will make a joke about...
he starts off like with like a dick joke or something, or like an audience or whatever, like something like lighthearted. And then when you're laughing and he's got you like going on, he starts to, but like, what about those things that's actually like a real problem? Yeah. And then like, like what's the deal with airplane food, right? Like, and then it's like why is it actually so bad? I'm like, what can we do to like do about this problem? Yeah, I guess. Do you think everyone wants to be in the generative dialogue?
Definitely more fun and interesting.
No, I 100% agree. But like, I don't want to say like, I want to know like, is everyone trying to get there? Because sometimes it feels like I'm dragging people there.
Right. So if I do the reflective thing in this moment, right, I'm like, is there ever a time when I don't want to be in the generative dialogue? And that's right, I put myself right into the reflective space immediately. And it's personal and it's real and it's me and it's...
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay, is there ever a time where I don't want to open up around someone? I think sometimes I can be running late or just trying to get where I'm trying to go. Not every single interaction has to be necessarily a long conversation. Although on my good days, I will happily have a conversation with every interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what comes to mind is paying for gas at a gas station, right? Now, this is a real human behind the counter. Sometimes it's like, oh, you're the person who I just need to go through to get the transaction done. But this is a real human there. And
Do
on my
they not
good
have the
day,
credit card thing in Australia?
some stations do. In fact, nowadays there's an app for some stations and not others.
Oh, I don't think we have an app yet. Here.
It's good. I like the app because it means I just, you know, I complete the transaction in my car on my phone and then I drive off. I don't have to interact with another person. Not that that's a big deal for me, but it's just convenience.
Yeah.
I'm in the healthy habit of never buying junk food from a gas station because all they have is candy.
Yeah, and it's overpriced too.
Yeah. So
You want to get your stuff from Costco and put it in the car.
staying in the car and doing the transaction there saves me an extra, like, I never buy the things, but if I did, I'd be like definitely trying to stay in the car while trying to like not go through that habit. It's these little things that add up in the life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, should I have a conversation with this person? If I'm having a day when I have meditated a whole heap, where I am open and spacious and calm and have lots of time in the world, I have nothing that I'm rushing to that I'm worried about, and I can be present with myself, then I will be comfortable and smile and be open, and chances are I'll get into a couple of words with the person, or I will there will be a more positive exchange than if I'm busy and rushing and having to get somewhere and all sorts of other problems are piling up in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But so there is that instance as I don't have time or interest in generative dialogue with this person. But other than that, are there any other... The question I am currently asking myself is, are there any other instances where I would want to avoid generative dialogue? There's one that is potentially if I'm negotiating or I'm in a negotiation setup and I don't want to give away information.
Like an us versus them situation.
Right.
Or zero
someone
sum.
trying to extract information from me which they may be able to use in the negotiation, and I don't want to give away some sort of personal detail.
Yeah, I think that's where the talking nice comes in. Because if you had talk nice about if nice in a way that you really trusted each other, then you would share that information.
Right. Talking nice is there to build trust, maybe.
Yeah. I think that's what it is, because you can't, having seen this for the first time today, you can't talk tough with someone without trust.
So there's something interesting here of safety.
Yeah.
For both yourself and for the other person. And the important thing is around safety is part of safety comes from yourself. So if you're internally, if I'm oh, this person is a stranger, I don't know if I can trust them if I tell them things, then I am creating the barrier towards feeling safe around them.
Yeah.
And I will block myself from being generative in front of them because I don't feel safe. Now, on the flip side, if someone does that to me, I will hopefully be present and aware and patient and be able to understand that, and attuned to the fact that they are sort of closed off and blocked. And I will be able to support them in feeling more comfortable and relaxing and opening up. Especially in therapeutic contexts where support is the way to go.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time or the time before, where you're doing, like you're when you're interacting with people, you're already doing a bunch of the work to make that pleasant for yourself and for them. And
Right.
so like
I'm already doing generative dialogue style. Like, here I
yeah,
am. That's
like
and then
you're doing like all these quadrants, I guess.
there's
Um,
there's like there's probably 20 to 30 of these little styles of conversation or styles of thinking that I'm balancing all the time.
mhm.
And at this point, I'm not doing it in my deliberate mind, I'm doing it automatically. So the generative thing, this one came to mind because you were talking about this group that you were struggling with. Other
Mhm.
things will come to mind as I need them. Um,
Yeah.
sort of balancing all sorts of.
Oh, I see. I see. So you've gone a step meta where you're like, in conversations I use this thing and I use all the other techniques and all like all these various like smaller. I guess what would you call it? Like manifolds of the conversation.
Okay. The trouble is that all of these things are always active. There's all of the many
Yeah.
versions. If I am not in while doing the generative dialogue, talking nice, talking tough, there is a possibility that I could be using nonviolent communication type language. And while doing that, there's a
Right.
uh, four types of decision making. This is another model. Uh, and while doing that, there is a relationships at play, and there are emotions at play, and there are sensations in the body, and there is cognitive things at play. Um, for example, I was coaching someone once, and working through some of their stuff, and it wasn't working. Whatever process I was working with was not working. And then what popped into my head was something like the phrase, I'm a bad coach. I'm bad at this thing." And this was so like I'm very self-championing, self-supportive, uh, like I'm the best in here. Like
Mm.
probably bordering on
Is
that
that your
healthy.
self talk? Like your internal self talk is like really positive.
Actually, my internal self-talk is very quiet, but if it's
Mm.
not quiet, it's generally on the positive side.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
so this thought came in that, oh, I'm bad at this, and I was so surprised by it that I didn't think it was like people do have this habit of having a thought and thinking it's theirs, right? This thought is mine. I think I'm a bad coach now, right? But in front of this particular person, I said it out loud. Um, and suddenly that is when like things opened up and changed. And the reason is because it wasn't mine, it was some sort of transference that I was sort of picking up on how he
Mm-hmm.
was frustrated, or he didn't want a coach that was good at what they did. He wanted a coach who could admit failure or something like that.
Mm. He wanted like a
So,
human coach or something,
right.
or he wanted like
Or,
some sort of resonance.
yeah, there was something that needed to be met in this client of mine that who was struggling with, I guess I'll never know the great depths of it, but some version of needing the coach to admit failure or defeat or struggle or something like that, as opposed to I am the best coach and I never have difficulties in life. I needed
Mm.
to, like you said, be human. Um,
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to need from your coach.
well, everyone's got stuff. Um,
Wait, but I'm distracted. Actually, the original thing I think was that like so you have all these different things that are going on,
right.
and
And I'm juggling them. And my
yeah,
ability to juggle that one was my ability to name it in the appropriate circumstance and make it possible to be useful.
yeah. So what is the juggling? Like, let's talk about juggling.
Ah, juggling.
Oh,
I have juggling balls, but they're in another room.
do you know how to juggle?
Yeah, of course. Wait, you don't know how to
I don't know
juggle?
how to juggle. I mean, like I know
Go.
intellectually, but I can't do it.
It probably takes a couple of hours, and that's it. And forevermore, you will know how to juggle.
It's the coordination. I have
Yeah,
practiced a
but
couple of times.
it takes a couple hours, so
I
you
got,
probably
it takes like actual dedication to I think to learn it. And you got to sit for those couple of hours and do it. Or
I would
something.
be very confident that if you had put 10 hours in of your lifetime, you would already be able to juggle.
Okay, fine. But like, okay, sell me on this. Like when you're saying the juggling, Like, are you using like, does it feel similar? Like, is there like an overlap? Like, is this a transferable skill?
Like from the physical juggling to the mental juggling?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it doesn't seem like the same skill. It's just good to know how to. You can impress kids all the time. Like even adults are like, "Wow, you know how to juggle."
Okay. Yeah.
It's yeah. I was a very bored kid in high school. I took juggling balls around to all my classes, and eventually everyone around me learned to juggle more than I did because I had the juggling balls, and so everyone would borrow them and learn.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And I got to see. I was part of the circus society. I learned to
What is
juggle.
Circus Society?
Oh yeah, university club based on circus.
That's crazy. I didn't know that was a real thing.
Yeah, it was fun. I don't think that group exists anymore, but all sorts of performance crafts, acrobatics, juggling, unicycling. I still unicycle.
Oh wow.
So often.
Wait, do you do acrobatics as well?
I'm not that bendy. I think I used to be more, and now I'm a bit more gentle on my body. And so I haven't done much in a while, but potentially I guess I could pick it back up.
That's crazy. So you know how to unicycle, juggle.
Yep.
Can you
I
breathe
have
fire?
all of the circus skills like staff or fire staff, devil
What?
sticks, the boy, what else? Contact juggling. I don't have a.
I did some of the, I think, devil sticks when we were younger. I wasn't really good at it. Like that's with the two sticks and the three sticks, like the two sticks in the middle one, the baton. I did a little bit of that when I was younger, but I wasn't like good at it.
I don't have anything with me, so you'll have to wait till another stream to see me juggle or do all of these tricks.
That's crazy. I know clown school's a thing. That's where Sacha Baron Cohen went. Who's Borat.
Nice.
Yeah. Because it's like a whole skill set he had to learn, right?
Yeah. Well, potentially acting schools they also exist. Where you're right, the whole skill set.
But yeah, the juggling. So you're
juggling.
You're juggling all these dimensions of reality or whatever.
Right. So.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, juggling. Juggling is a great skill. So, I think a lot of the time there's a bad habit of living only through one model and being and clinging tightly to it. And so there's definitely a skill of letting go of that model.
Yeah.
Whichever model you're in. And
I'm very much like yeah, I'm very much got that addiction to a good model. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just be like, that's the model of reality, and I'm just doing that.
Right. So there's a real skill in letting go of the current model and just seeing and then floating for a bit, and so that's separate skills, right? So skill, let go of model, right?
Yeah.
Next skill, floating, hanging out in the floaty space without having to cling back to something.
Yeah.
That's another skill too.
I got addicted to that for a while, where I was always trying to be in that floaty space.
Mm.
But yeah, and then what's the third one?
Right, skill 3 would be to notice something insightful or a way of seeing the world that is new and insightful.
Yeah, being able to pick it up and put it down, sort of enter the frame, use it, and let it go.
There are heaps of frames floating around us, right? I can even do first person, second person, third person right here, right?
Yeah.
So through my eyes, what's Daniel seeing, and what would a third person be seeing of our
what's the listener hearing?
And then we can go fourth, fifth, sixth. We can move further into what subset of culture are we embedded in when we're having this conversation? That's a skill to be able to shift into those frames. And so they're always here, as is NVC, generative dialogue, all of these different things. They're always here, but to be able to collect them or to suddenly try on this new pair of glasses, oh, it looks like this.
Yeah. So the way I'm seeing it is all of reality is happening all at once. So like anytime you learn a model that like is accurate to reality and predictive, like a good model, that model is true everywhere for all time. But whatever, let's say within its
It
frame.
may vary in relevance.
Within its frame, yeah. Sorry?
It may vary in relevance.
But yeah, it varies in relevance, right? So if I'm playing computer games by myself, like MVC is not really a thing. It still exists, and like every once in a while there's still something like, oh, self-talk or the way I'm interacting or whatever pops up. But that's what I'm saying, the manifold, like it's like that dimension exists, but it's mostly just empty space, and it's not relevant. So for me, like that's what I'm doing. Like the first thing I'm doing is like understanding models. But when I'm in a situation, there's lots of models floating around. I'm not sure how to deal with it. It's I'm looking at the space, like I'm in the moment, like I'm presencing my experience, and then I'm seeing what manifolds are there. So it's not what dimensions are there, because if you get the models correctly and you see where it applies, where it doesn't apply, then you should just be able to see right through it and not even know that you know it. Because like if you know it's irrelevant, then I think that's a drain of information, right? Like when you're engaging with something, you don't want to see the things that are irrelevant. You want them to just not exist.
Right. So, for example, if I was in a business meeting and suddenly popping into my head is like, who's the sexiest in the room? I'm like, well, that's just not particularly helpful for me right now.
Right. That's a real dimension of reality. There are people in the room. Someone is going to be the sexiest. Sexuality is an important part of life and existence and experience. But like, it's not relevant to the thing you're doing right now. So you want it to not exist in your frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's important, and unless it is relevant, because like I don't know, like,
unless suddenly like
business
all the men are like acting differently towards all the women or something, or
so then you want it to show up
with the hunch of like when I am working with in a like relational setting. Usually what will pop into mind is relevant. Now, I may not know why it's relevant or what about it is relevant, but I'm in the habit of treating it as relevant because I'm much more likely to find the relevance if I do.
Right, but then this is the thing. This is the thing that I struggle with, is that like for me, like frames, like sometimes like I'll have frames and I'm like, okay, is this frame relevant? And then like I can see myself entering the frame, but then once I'm in the frame, like the frame itself is like trying to figure out what's going on. So if I'm like, who's the sexiest, right? Like that's a thing that I have to calculate. Like I don't sometimes I just know it, but sometimes I don't, right? Like I'd have to actually like sit and calculate it. But like now I've been spending all this time and energy calculating it out, and so really the first thing I do is calculate, like, is this even relevant to anything? And if it's not relevant, then I'm not going to waste time and energy because I need that for other things. But the thing is that there's like all these different frames, and I can't, like, calculating frames itself is kind of like a frame.
So skills.
Now I've confused myself, which is why I wanted to talk about this.
Skills of juggling. So being able to put down a frame, being able to stay not in a frame for a bit, being able to pick up a new frame, being able to put down that new frame as well is important. Being able to find the relevance of the frame. We should
make a list of this.
Yep.
I think this is a good thing. Does this psychotechnology exist?
Nope. Not as far as I know.
All right, we should just invent it real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the thing we can do in Psychotechnologies Live, right? Just invent our own psychotechnologies. Doesn't have to.
This one I would think about as naming an existing. Yeah, I guess it was already in my head, and a bunch of people out there would be like, "I knew that already," and I'll be like, "Why didn't you write it down?"
Okay, fine. You know what? You can say this, and this is technically true, but then like all these other like random frame stuff that people show up with, is like all these like small things. It's like, well, I already knew like the generative dialogue and like talking and stuff, but like it's like, yeah, you know it, but like having it like nicely laid out in front of you in a way that you can see it and look at it and experience it and then move on, like that is valuable. Even if it's not necessarily new information, it's information presented in a different way, I think. And that itself is valuable.
So I perceive my journey through life as first just living within pretty much one frame or a small handful of frames until such time as I recognized or the ability to perceive reality from that there are frames. And then it's like an expanding from smaller object to bigger object until I hit frames. And then it's moving between frames and juggling frames is a different, very different flavor of reality than just living in them.
Okay, so you start in a frame. Let's say that's your frame position.
Right. And the frame can be, I feel like I should steal from some of the developmental theories, right? The frame can be survival, classic, right? And then from survival, we're distracted into a little bit of mythology, and then that's our main frame is, well, we see reality, but also sometimes we're like afraid of the dark because there's someone that could be
things are scary in the dark, yeah.
Right.
My kid was afraid of the dark, and I sat with him for a while in the dark, and he got less afraid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done. That's a real skill.
Yeah.
To be able to have noticed that and to have already modulated the experience is quite a skill.
Yeah, I have no doubt that it will come back as he gets older, but yeah.
Right.
At least like chunking it. So
what may come back is a iteration at a different layer.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, being afraid of the dark may be literally in the beginning I can't see, and I'm awake but can't see, and later
like a fear of blindness or something.
Right, and then later it may be more like I don't know what's out there, and that's scary to not know. And then even further it may be
yeah, he might not be there yet.
Right. So later when he discovers knowing as opposed to seeing.
Yeah. When he discovers there are things that exist, then he'll be like in the dark he'll be like, well, I can't see those things now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And that may be, and then later again there may be knowing, but not knowing is something uncomfortable.
Yeah. So then that would be like kind of like a diffuse anxiety or something later. Where it's like first it's like, help, I'm blind, and then it's like, no, you're not blind, and like if you sit in the dark you'll be able to see like a little bit, and like it's okay.
So it's okay to be in the dark.
Yeah, and it's okay. Like my dad's here and he's calm, and we're just like sitting together, and everything is actually okay. And then and then when he gets older and he realizes like things exist that do stuff, I guess. Like I don't know if he has like real good conception.
For example, my teddy bear. I have a teddy bear, right? And then when it's dark, it may be like, oh no, where's my teddy bear?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like things that I love can go away, can get lost, and yeah. So then that's probably gonna be another one, and then maybe and then like I guess like things happen in the dark that I can't see, and so like being accustomed to that, and then the next stage would probably be like vague things that I don't know, like the unknown unknowns are there and I can't really do anything about that, and then that I think probably comes in as like anxiety. Okay, I like this. So you're in the frame, so you're stuck in the frame. You got this, which is like survival mythology, survival e.g. survival, blind, mythology, lose things, whatever, and then bad stuff. And then what happens? So you're in a frame. Then I guess you realize you're in a frame, and you exit the frame.
There's a skill here in exiting the frame. Probably early on you don't know how to. You just, there's probably an example of the frame that I have when I'm around grandma. And then later I'm not around grandma, and the frame is different. And I'm like, oh, this is, like, the world's a bit scarier when I'm not around grandma or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's like in a frame, and then you're out of the frame, and you're noticing you're out of the frame, versus like exiting the frame is not necessarily a step, because like if I go to grandma's and then I come back here, I may not have noticed that transition between frame grandma and not frame grandma, but I do notice that I don't feel the same way here that I do around grandma.
I would say that I probably noticed the absence. The first thing I would start to notice is, so let's say I've been in a stuffy room and I'm like, I am starting to fall asleep in the stuffy room. And that is my experience. And then I get to, maybe I'm in high school, right? Stuck in the stuffy room, starting to fall asleep, thinking, why is English so boring? Because I'm stuck in the stuffy room. And then I get to leave the room, and I realize, oh, stuffy room frame was only because that building, that's the top floor of the building, and it gets a lot of sun and it's very stuffy. As I walk down the corridor, it's actually a really nice day, and I feel way better. And the dominant experience that I'm having has moved from stuffy room to now, as I walk through the halls to my next class or whatever, I feel very different. I feel fresh again, and that my dominant experience is now known by its contrast to the stuffy room. Right? Suddenly, I feel very fresh, and so I don't have the tools to. I'm in a stuffy room, and I need to pretend like I'm fresh or refresh myself, even though I'm falling asleep. I'm just kind of stuck in that frame, and then I notice the difference. Because the frame is left. And later, I'll be in a room, I'll be in a meeting, and 10 years later, I'll be in a business meeting, and I'll be able to say, this room is too stuffy. What we need is, and I'll be able to deliberately take actions to change frame-like experience. From myself and others.
And so then that would be like the third step is like, I'm in this frame, but there's a better way. Right, so like, guys, we're in this frame, we're in this like space where errors
are. No one's being creative right now in this meeting. What we need is some fresh air. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah. And then that's like that's like a deliberate transition, a deliberate frame shift. So you're in the frame, you're out of the frame, and you notice that you were in the frame, and then you're in the frame. And you have the ability to shift.
That's always, there's some active skill there, deliberately taking actions to change frames.
Let's open a window. Okay. Okay, so this is like frame. So this is just like a frame. So you're in a frame, you're out of the frame. You like, so like an experienced person, the way you know your experience is this is if you're in a situation and you like know how to handle it, I guess. Then you have mastery over the frame. But what about like picking frames? So like, if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking for like which party should I go to, or you're looking like who should I talk to? You're like, well, there's all these frames I could pick, right? If I go hang out with Eliot, it's going to be one way. If I go hang out with my New Year's friends, then it's going to be a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like how am I juggling this? Like how should I make these choices? Or like what is that like? Like that's the juggling, right? There's all these frames, and I like them all. I want to keep them all alive, but I don't know. There's something about like once I enter the frame, even if I have mastery over it, I'm still in that frame.
Mm-hmm.
Like one time I went to a party and I didn't text my wife, and then she got worried. And so I was doing like the party frame well, but I wasn't doing the like meta frame of my life, I guess, well, because I didn't text her.
Right. So.
And I was supposed to. I agreed to it.
These things are very tricky, particularly because we have a limited conscious mental space in which we can take actions and keep track of frames. And so, to do some of this work in our auto-conscious system, the system that will bring in a new frame when it's like, oh, you forgot to text your wife. The system that will do that as you're walking through the door. Oh, you have to text your wife before you get distracted by the party. So we need to secede. We need to make sure there's enough capacity in that auto system that I'm not. If I'm in my
okay, interesting. Okay, yeah.
If I'm in my conscious of like, oh, this party might be awkward. I don't know so many guests. Like, I haven't got enough time to let my auto conscious be like, remember that thing, because I'm too busy in my main frame of like, how do I make this party less awkward or something?
Yeah. Okay. So I was like kind of not following you, but then you said like building, or you said something about the auto capacity, and now I'm like in this. Now I'm in your frame because I'm liking this. This feels right.
Right. So I need to let that auto system do its thing. And that means I need to trust it. I need to trust my distracting brain that when it brings up distractions, it's doing it for the right reasons.
Let's talk about that. So when it brings up the distractions, it's doing it for a reason. So what does this mean? Does this mean like always listen to your distractions?
No.
Always get distracted. People with ADD are masters of frame control. I don't think that's what you meant.
So there is a skill there of. Imagine if you couldn't distract yourself to get important information from the outside. That's the like, I'm too busy picking berries getting eaten by a lion because I didn't hear the lion because I was too busy picking berries.
Yeah.
So there is some benefit to, we're going to bring in some meditation into this psychotechnology. So type of meditation called the monkey mind meditation. Your monkey mind is the mind that gets distracted very easily.
Okay.
And there is usually people starting out on a meditative journey around distraction don't like it. They don't like getting distracted. They don't like their monkey mind. They don't like all of the nuisance that happens when they can't stay on topic.
Yeah. Yeah, because I see a lot of this for like amateur or beginner meditators where they're like, oh, like clear your mind, and they like try to push everything away. And they're just like, okay, I need to sit and focus on this thing and not listen to any of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the type monkey mind meditation looks a lot like daydreaming. You sit, you relax, you get comfortable, and you watch what your mind does and how it gets distracted.
Oh, so this is a deliberate meditation. Like you have the do nothing meditation. And now you have the monkey mind meditation. These are different meditations.
That's right.
So what is it you're doing? You're
specifically meditating on the monkey mind.
So and meaning you're like sort of concentrating on what you're distracted by?
Right. So not quite. The way to set it up is something like follow the breath, but follow it lightly. So I'm going to stay following the breath, And then I'm going to cautiously, because if I watch too carefully when my mind is getting distracted, I'm going to I'm going to end up distracting in a different direction, or I'm going to end up getting in the way of that process of distraction. So I won't really be able to see it clearly because I'll be interrupting it. So I need to slightly follow the breath, but what I'm trying to do is understand what happens and how the mind gets distracted. And it takes a little bit of fiddling with to get the hang of it. And I'm gonna follow the breath, and it's, I take a breath in, breath out, and then I take a breath in, and then I'm all the way over there. I've thought 7 things later.
Yeah.
But I was planning that I was going to get distracted, and so I watched, and 7 things later was, I was thinking about when I grew up, I owned pet chickens. And I got there there was a sound, there was a bird outside, and the bird outside reminded me, because I heard the sound of the bird, and the sound of the bird, there was like a hitch in my breath that was a little uncomfortable, and so I listened to the sound, and then 7 steps later I was thinking about this childhood memory of having chickens, right?
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Right, but what I've learned is the way that the mind takes jumps, right? And I've started to get the hang of that, and I've started to get the hang of what's going on here with the monkey mind.
And so you're noticing like the jumping, I guess, without so much the context?
Potentially the jumping, or potentially the way in which my mind got distracted. Maybe the hitch in the breath was me going like, oh, the breath is kind of boring. So, I had a thought, the breath is kind of boring, and then...
what's interesting? Chickens.
I heard a sound, and then oh, that's that type of bird, and then I was like, I was in my backyard at home, and then I was, 7 steps later, I'm in this memory. Mm-hmm. Right? But I have, in fact, what I've been doing is I've been studying and understanding the way that my mind gets distracted. Right? So this is the monkey mind meditation. I would recommend it to many people to explore what's going on, to understand themselves deeper, to connect with...
Is it just like watching? I'm still trying to see if I can nail this meditation. Is it watching? It's watching the jumps? Yeah. Like coming in and being like, hey, I'm going to get distracted. And I'm curious what that's like. And you just watch yourself get distracted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And watch why certain jumps happen, or the question is why am I getting distracted? Mm-hmm. And gently, with curiosity, we go for the I'm gonna see what I'm gonna try and ask why. And I'm gonna meditate lightly and then get distracted and then be like, what happened there? And that will help me trace back and understand what's going on with my mind. Mm-hmm. And I can almost guarantee a deeper insight, a deeper self-awareness, a connection, and an understanding of what distractions are, and an integration with the part of me that likes to get distracted because it's trying to help or whatever. So, I got bored, and then I ended up getting distracted because I didn't like being bored. And increasing my skill in meditation is going to make it possible for me to stay bored or understand that I was getting distracted because of boredom. And so I need to increase how interested I am so that I can move forwards.
Sorry, it's hard for me to follow because I'm thinking about the meditation that we're talking about. And so when I for me to understand the meditation, I have to do it a little bit.
Sure, and go for it.
And that's,
try it. Yeah,
and I just had a whole experience while you were talking.
Try do a bit and
it feels very relaxing. I feel very...
What's going on?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not even I'm let's say taking this a piece at a time. So I'm not trying to understand what's going on. I'm just sort of doing it and noticing that I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. Because versus trying to gain insight from the experience.
Go for it.
And it was just it was this daydreaming, like when you were talking. I hope what you were saying was interesting because I think I didn't quite get it.
Yeah, good, right? So
Yeah, but that's okay because we're recording, right? So it's like you're talking to the audience. But yeah, it was like I was daydreaming. I think normally I feel like when I'm in that daydream where like I've lost touch of reality of like what's happening in the moment in like a very complete almost way. And I usually like panic when I come back. I'm like, oh fuck, like I wasn't listening to Eliot. Like, I asked him, and I feel like guilty because like I asked you the question because I want to hear the answer, and like you're going and explaining this to me, and I'm just like spacing out, like just being a complete dick.
No, it's good. It's good because you are trying the meditation out.
Yeah. Yeah.
The tricky thing
this actually happens when I talk to you sometimes, which is interesting. Where, like it's like my mind slides.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've had people say that happens when they talk to me. And I have seen it also happen. Other people talk to me where like I'll say the things and it feels like smooth or something on the inside, and then you're just like I didn't get any of that, but like I felt good for a little bit, and now I'm somewhere else, and like this sense of panic of like I shouldn't be here. I should be like it's like I shouldn't be here. Like I'm in the wrong frame. It feels like I'm almost like I'm in the wrong frame because I didn't have like that awareness to collect the information to make decisions about where I want to be inside my consciousness relative to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just ended up in a random place. Which if I'm by myself, it's fine, right? Because whatever, like I'll just hang out and feel good. Like that's an okay thing to do in life. And I feel like I'm rambling now. Yeah, I have no frame. I have no frame. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so the monkey mind meditation is there. It's like putting you in this space where you don't really have a frame. Because like if you're noticing all the things.
The witness. Your frame is to witness your monkey mind.
Yeah, that's not really a frame. But whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a.
Oh, so you're just the witness. So what is this?
Yes.
That's stream entry? Or how would you say this? Like in
This is a particular type of meditation.
Okay.
The monkey mind meditation is a very particular type of meditation that when I did it, it helped me understand distraction, distracting mind, getting distracted, the whole thing. In fact, talking about it is taking me back to when I was doing it. Like, oh yeah. All of these, I got a lot of insights from this, and I forgot that's where they came from because I've done so many different types of meditation.
Okay, cool. So this is like nostalgic for you.
Yeah, a little.
In a way, it's like nostalgic for me because it feels like this is what I did as a kid, and this is like what I wanted to do as a kid until the adults yelled at me enough that they're like,
"I'm not even paying attention."
Yeah, like quit daydreaming and pay attention. And like I don't know, to a certain extent, I guess I bought into that. Cause like paying attention to stuff is actually really useful and important in life. But yeah, so like this daydreaming, I guess, it's like you're completely just lost in the daydreaming, without. Versus like often when versus like sort of like a fantasizing where I'm like thinking about stuff or planning in like an imaginative way, and like there's like I'm putting effort into it to make it realistic. Or like if I'm writing something, like if I'm writing a piece of fiction, then like I'm not just writing whatever's like showing up. It's like gotta be coherent in a way that someone else could read it and it like makes sense and like some level of realism or whatever. And this is just pure. It's almost like just pure fantasy. It's like a
And
dream. It's like a dream.
I felt myself go down the tangent around writing. Like, sudden talk.
Yeah, I see you slip off when you're in these places. Yeah, but that's cool. We can go there.
But like, I can see why I did that, right? So let me
Or
tell
if you
this
want, I
story.
mean, it's part of the meditation.
I so you said writing. It's like when I'm writing, and you kept going, continued around conversation around writing, and I went, yes, I have been trying to write things. Like there was a thought of like I have this strong intention to write more things, and I would like to put more thought into how I write and how I cohere
Mm.
subtle structure, something like the way the mind gets distracted into a piece of writing. And I felt myself go, I have to hold on to that. Like, that's a really interesting piece of information. I'm
Yeah.
going to be with it. And I'm distracted from what Daniel was saying, but I'm like, I'm here enough to hear the words that Daniel said, but I'm holding on to this other thing that I'm much more interested in because I'd like to do more writing and I'd like to get better at writing and I'd like to
Yeah.
write something of great use to people. And the way
Yes.
to do it is to write down something deeply true about reality that puts there's the way I see the world in some particular structure, subtle structure or real structure or relationship between object, and then there's being able to write that down in a way that is coherent and useful to other people. And there's something about the way in which doing the looking, like the seeing, and then writing down not just what I see, but the process of doing the looking, which is trickier, which is the insight that came to me in that moment, was that it's not just writing down what you see, it's writing down the process of doing the seeing. And some sort of deeper universal truth is the process of doing seeing rather than what is seen.
Mm.
Anyway, that's why I got distracted, because I found this other one, and I treat certain insights as super valuable, right? My mental space is set up to care deeply about the topic of writing. Just in the last few days, I've thought to myself, I've written a bit and I've thought I'd like to write more. Oh, I'd like to write something complicated. And so I have all of this set up. So when Daniel says the word writing, suddenly I'm like...
Yeah, it triggers a whole...
right.
What do you call that?
Like a cognitive cascade or something?
What?
A cascade of different thoughts.
Yeah, to me it's like it's kind of like the Jonas Whirlies or something, where it's like there's this, it's like this like kind of like ball of I don't want to call it energy, that's too lame, but like it's this like thing that like it's got its own gravity well, it like sucks you in and there's all this stuff happening and inside is all this complexity, and it's like when you're there you want to be there, but also you left for a reason.
Mm.
And like you don't, yeah, it's like this is a frame, it's like a big frame, right? Like you're like the way you've constructed your reality in such a way that like writing holds to you like something important, and it like sucks thing it like takes things in. I don't mean sucking in like a negative necessarily way, but it like pulls your consciousness in, and it's something like you're orbiting around and you're trying to build out and figure out and all that.
Right, it's like I bookmarked in my head, this is important, and then later when it comes up, I'm like, aha! Or maybe it's...
yeah, but like we were doing the other meditation, and now we're doing this, right? Like, so like you made a choice at some point, or did you, or did it just happen by itself? Or...
Well, I even made the choice when I intended to think more about writing several days ago. And it's been sitting floating in the back of my mind.
Right. And then it was like it was like a frame that existed that you weren't touching. But then it got connected to what we're doing here.
Right.
I don't know. This is the thing I'm looking at. I don't even know if I should be looking at it. Like, I don't even know if that's the right thing to look. That's the problem with this is like every time, it's like I want to know more, but if I ask a question, I've already limited, like I've already framed it. And so, like, I kind of want to, like, ask the question without asking the question. Like, without saying anything. Like, I want you to know what question I should be asking and then answering that question. But, like, also, like, this is real life, right?
The way in which questions contract, and there's a way to not contract the question. To ask the question and then uncontract again and see what comes.
So, like, ask the question lightly and then...
Yes.
And like, have it just trigger something inside you.
The people of deeper skill in answering questions know to not get contracted with them too much.
They know it's not about the question, it's about the...
I have this problem that I'm so very relational that if someone contracts with the question too much, then I'm stuck. I'm just like, oh, I can't answer that from this place. Particularly if it's judging. This is my own stuff again. If there's too much judgment in a question, like the answer that I give is going to be judged, then I can't answer because I shut down my, like, even the thoughts don't pop into my mind. That's how well it's repressed. If I think I'm going to be judged, then it doesn't pop to mind for me to say things.
Yeah, I started doing that also. Because, like, I used to just be like, oh, whatever, it's fine, I'll just answer the question. But then it just winds up, like, they're just, like, judging me and everything just turns to shit. And,
right.
And so now I'm like, I have the answer, but I'm not giving it to you because
right.
you're
So
going to punch me in the face. Huh?
I have the experience where I don't even have the answer.
Okay.
I'd like to answer, but nothing's coming to mind.
Interesting. Is that what you respond with, or is that what's going on in your head? Or
sometimes? Sometimes I respond with that. Other times I wait a while. Depends on the person.
Interesting.
There's something of a...
But the first thing that popped into my mind was that's such a douchebag move. So I don't know, maybe I'm too judgy for the answer.
You know?
But it might not be. Yeah.
I can't help it. If nothing... If I'm like...
but you know what? If they're being a douchebag first, I think, like... Yeah.
It's sort of like... If I were to ask Daniel, why were you late today? Like... It will put you in a defensive, right? And if you refuse to be, possibly, you won't happen to have not been late today.
Okay, yeah. So I would have impulsively answered that question. Not that I was late today, but
it puts like a defensive frame. Like I'm defending. I was late.
But like that's, I think, yeah. The thing is, okay, yeah, okay. Let's explore this one because I thought I didn't get sucked in as much as I do, but I think now I'm realizing that I do get sucked in more. So, like, for me, it's like that's kind of justified, right? If we're going to say we're going to meet at a time, and then I'm late, and then you're judgmental, I feel like that judgment is valid.
Well, what if, so what if I have expectations that cross over boundaries? Like,
right.
I say, Daniel, you haven't done the description on yesterday's video yet, and you said you didn't say you would. But if you said that you would.
Yeah, I did say I would, and I haven't done that yet. Whatever. Like I have a whole excuse. That's the thing. The whole story came to mind, right? Like as soon as you asked that.
Right. So if I add more like frame pressure, like that's not good enough. I know you have a whole story. Stop trying to make up a story.
Then that's a violation of the boundaries.
Right.
Right. Then I'm like, okay, why are you pushing this so hard? Because this would be out of character for you, and it would be out of character for your relationship.
Right. And so,
but no, I would be on the defensive. Like you would already be. I would probably be panicking actually. If I were like not panicking, what I would be like is like, okay, this is a boundary violation, right? Because you primed me with a boundary violation. Real life, I would be panicking and just like trying to dig my way out of it. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like I got sucked into a frame, and then like the frame got spun out of control, and now I don't want to be here. But like, I don't have the
So,
wherewithal to like just leave.
so my experience would be something like, um, when hit with a frame that I don't like, the first thing I do is like pretty much go blank, and often
Okay.
part of what that is I don't hold the fight. I'm like, where is this gonna go? Let's see what
You just go
Daniel has
blank.
to. Well, try and like try pick something that you can accuse me of that crosses the boundary, sort of.
Why didn't you comb your hair today?
Right. So one option is me to like resist the question, right? Hold back, and another option is me to just be like, I will often go blank, and usually it will lead to the other person expanding on the question.
So sort of like silent, like
Or
by
let
blank you
me,
mean like silence?
yeah, the silence, but also silence inside. So maybe like a, what do you mean? Would help to bridge that, like translate that silence.
Uh-huh.
What do you mean? When you ask that question, what do you mean? The improv games now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, see, now I'm in a frame that I don't necessarily want to be in, but I'm in a meta frame that I do want to be in. So it's like a weird sort of situation. But the thing is that I trust you that if like this spins out of control, I could just be like, I don't know what's going on anymore, and it would be fine. But like real life, it's like we're not necessarily as playful.
Hmm.
But okay, so I'll be in the frame I don't want to be in, inside the meta frame that I do want to be in. Which is like me asking this question, combing hair. Well, yeah, well we're doing the YouTube videos, and like I combed my hair because I didn't want it sticking up, and you didn't comb your hair, and this feels unprofessional.
Right. So immediately, as you expanded, you've named a value of unprofessionalism, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so now I have to work with, oh, Daniel would like more professionalism. Like I already know the answer. Like you expanded that so far that I'm like, okay, maybe you explained your frame enough that now I can join. Oh yeah, I would like to be professional.
Oh, so you're joining now the professional frame, not the
Sure.
hair frame. And so now we can have a conversation around like professionalism.
Right, agreed values or something.
Uh-huh.
But my first impression, my first reaction was not to defend myself around the combed hair or to do anything like push back, but to like wait and get more information.
Okay. But you had, okay, so this is a good tactic. I like it. You're like taking a beat, you're taking a pause, and you're like expand, right? So like and then so I'm gonna expand it. Let's say I give you a half-assed answer, you'd probably be like, can I hear more until it hits like a frame that you're familiar with.
I'd probably be like, I'm confused. If I got a half-assed answer, I'd probably say,
Right. Which is like I guess like a
until I got a little bit more.
like I'm confused is almost like a bid for clarity, I think. Often.
That's right. And I'm trying to pick the genuine frames, right? The genuine, I would probably be confused as opposed to like, I would seed my confusion to try and get more information out.
Yeah.
Well,
I
like
think I
just
do that
like,
sometimes, where I swallow my own confusion, to like get the information, instead of just being like, I'm confused. But yeah, because it depends how much I trust the other person, right? Like I think with you, I'm comfortable sharing, like my ignorance or that I'm confused. But like other people, I'm not necessarily wanting them. Like there might be negotiation stuff happening, and I don't want them to know I'm confused, because it's gonna not bode well for me. Because I know they're gonna be dicks about it. I know they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're always confused," right? And I'll be like, "Well, I always know I'm confused. I think you think you're not confused, and you're just like in this like other reality."
There's also
Ugh, no. All right,
There's a
whatever.
phenomenon in negotiation where we will, so someone will want me to feel a certain way, right? You should be ashamed of yourself, or I'm trying to get you to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if I'm successful in forcing the frame in that way, then I'm more likely to get the outcome I'm looking for through
Yeah.
enforcing the. And so I have this ability to just go go wherever. Like, oh, they want me to be ashamed. Let's try that on. Like, okay.
Right, let's try that on. But then if you get into it, right, like you forget you're playing it until
Right.
you go back and do the monkey mind meditation. But the monkey mind meditation itself is a frame that you have to be able to have access to that you don't necessarily have in the moment.
So when I add the willingness of like, let's try that on, I know that I'm trying it on, as opposed to where if I just suddenly start feeling ashamed or something, I will probably surprise myself because I'll be like, I didn't even know I cared about that.
Mm-hmm. So there's.
But when I'm like, all right, let's try that on and see how that is. Oh, I see where they're coming from when they're trying to tell me I should be ashamed. Now I understand what they're trying to bargain for.
Okay, so like you enter their frame and then you see, like the moves they're making within inside that frame lets you know where they're coming from outside the frame.
Like I was saying earlier with the I'm a bad coach frame, right?
Yeah.
When I suddenly when the transformation happened, when the person was like, oh, I can't remember the exact thing, and I should probably leave out some details, but something like they were able to be like to see how even coaches fail sometimes, or a coach who can admit that they're bad at it is like repairing in some way for this person's prior experiences where people could not admit their own faults in life. So by entering that frame, I was able to provide the possible repair. I'm the one in charge, but I don't actually know. It could have come up many times in many people's lives.
Uh-huh. So it's like in that situation, like the I'm in charge and I don't know, like that's the thing that he, the client, I guess. I'm just assuming it's a he, but.
Yeah, I did say he. Yeah.
Okay. That's the thing that he wanted to engage with. And so he kind of kept projecting that until you were like, okay, there's this thing here and I need to say it and I don't know why or where it's coming from. But then once you did say it, you were able to like then he was like, oh yeah, this thing, and then you're like, oh, now everything's working. And then you like you kind of like did the right move, and then you figured out, and then you found out as you went along why that was the right move.
Mm-hmm.
But then also like getting back to the thing is like I'm kind of getting like sucked into this other way of thinking, but like I still have the like question of like how do I not get stuck in frames then?
Mm-hmm. So one option is to drop the frame.
No, but you're saying drop the frame, but that presumes that I'm trying to leave the frame. But I'm saying I don't know that I'm trying to leave the, like it's after, like it's like hindsight. It's like all the things I know in hindsight. I want to know them during the conversation, right? Or I should have said this, or I should have said that, or like I shouldn't have gotten stuck in that frame, in that mindset, or whatever.
Right.
I want to know that now, not the next day in the shower.
One opportunity here is to keep catching it in hindsight and try and bring the hindsight sooner and sooner until such time as you're doing the hindsight on the spot.
Okay. So like notice the hindsight sighting come up.
Right, so 5 minutes later you're like, I should have said this, or he was trying to do that on me, or he was trying to make me feel ashamed. And then next time, hopefully 4 minutes later, 3 minutes later, 2 minutes later, until you're like in the moment and you have that information with you.
Okay.
You're trying to integrate some sort of hindsight wisdom knowing into your.
And how does that one work, let's say?
How to do that?
Yeah, how do I get that earlier?
Let me show you something.
Because like I do this with pot, right? Like the pot lets you do this actually really well. Like you can see what you're thinking before you think it.
That's funny. I've had an experience with weed type drug, which is that there's like an echo that keeps like I have the echo of the thing 3 seconds ago or 10 seconds ago. which enables me to do some extra reflective processing because things are on echo.
That's interesting. I think my perception is the echo.
Yes,
and I'm seeing the thing before it's happening. Like I'm identifying with the echo.
I'm not sure which way I have it. Whether I'm
because if you're the echo, if your thinking is the echo, then you're seeing your thinking before you're doing it.
Right.
I guess it's just different ways of describing the same phenomenon.
Yeah. Maybe I identify more with the witness. Anyway, this book called Action Inquiry.
Okay, I think I've heard of this. Yeah.
By Bill Torbert, has in it a process called Action Inquiry. The tagline of Action Inquiry is...
Good title, then. Sorry. It's a good title. Sorry, just being a dick. Go on.
The tagline is, every action is an inquiry, and every inquiry is an action. Which is, the proposal is for real-time feedback of information. So, when I ask a question, I find out what happens. First of all, I find out what people answer. But second of all, when I give an answer, I find out if people understood it, right? So it's not just questions that have a feedback loop. It's every action can be treated as an inquiry to see how the world will respond to my action.
Yeah, that's like very like an empirical like way of seeing things, where everything you're doing is technically an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And if
That's right.
and the more you know about what's going on and what you're doing, the more valid that experiment is. Like, because the more your predictions or stuff.
Right. So there's weak epistemic value for every single experiment, and if you do enough of them, you can start adding that value together.
Yeah.
To a coherent model.
Yeah, or you can even like build the experiments better. Like if you're doing predictions constantly, like this is like a rationalist thing. It's like noticing when you're surprised is updating your priors essentially, because if your priors were correct, you wouldn't have been surprised.
Mm-hmm.
But now there is something new about the world. Like you can update every time you're surprised.
Right. So this practice, this action inquiry practice, is one to bring hindsight closer in time.
Oh wow. That's like back propagating, right? Like if you're thinking about it from like a neuronal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is prophecy as well. Not to get too into the religious stuff, but like if there's like a prophet who's like, guys, like the end is nigh, like I don't know if like he's correct or not, but like let's say you want to be that guy. It's gonna be like, here's what the future holds. This is what you would do to like master that skill.
Mm. Right. You would run many iterative experiments on your ability to predict what will happen until such time you're really, really good at it.
Yeah.
And consequential predictions of the future.
Yeah, and you would just know things.
Mm-hmm.
I do tend to find when I do these things, the things that I know, like I know like as I do this kind of stuff, like I know more and more things before they happen. But then like there's a shift, but then it becomes like very quickly like this information is not useful.
Mm.
Right? Like if you're like, it's like watching a car crash in like slow motion, like you know what's gonna happen and your knowledge means nothing.
Mm. It's a lot more like, in my experience, a lot more like party tricks.
Yeah.
Like, I'll see someone looking and I'll be like, oh, they want a glass of water. And I can go and get them the glass of water and they'll be like, how did you know? And I'll be like, well, it was kind of obvious. Because it's not obvious at all. Right? It's a little Sherlock Holmes movie.
I should do that at the parties. At parties.
Often people confused or lost or awkward or like trying to get, like, for example, find the glass of water, but they don't know where the cups are, right? So you know what it looks like when someone's looking for cups, kind of.
Yeah, I do that sometimes where like if I see it, like I see someone just like whatever, like beginning to look around and I'm already like knowing there's like 10 steps to like go through it and I just like get them the thing. I'm like, oh, here's some water. They're like
Hmm.
But yeah, I feel like it doesn't get that wow that it should. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm not.
Yeah, unfortunately, real magic is a little bit too invisible to everyone else.
Yeah, because you just do the things and everyone's like, oh, things just work out. Like, it's fine.
Right.
And then you're like, no,
So,
like, this is actually hard work that I'm doing here. Appreciate me.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's
People
like.
know,
Mhm.
there's like you will never get the appreciation for the depth of complexity that you are experiencing other than from yourself, because no one else can see it through
Yeah.
your eyes, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like, that's true and it's not true. I feel like I do appreciate you, even though I don't. Like, I don't see all the things you're doing, obviously. And I'm not.
Mm.
Even though a lot of things that I do see you do, I don't. Like, I don't necessarily
Mm.
point them out because, like, that's not what we're doing. But
Yeah.
I do know there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm just missing.
There's probably a like to invent a new psychotechnology for myself here. There's a chance for me to appreciate the depth and complexity of what other people are doing,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore create a world in which as I appreciate other people doing the depth and complexity, I will myself be watching out for people doing that too. I
Mm-hmm.
notice it more often.
Yeah.
And I get to enjoy a world in which other people appreciate my depth and complexity as well.
Yeah. You got to create that coin. And I think the cool thing about these kind of coins is that you only really need to do one side and the other side just appears as if by magic.
Mm. Right.
And that brings us right back around to the beginning of Archetypes, right?
Archetypes, tricksters.
Yeah. Archetypes are like that, where like if you see the trickster, you know, the little boy one, I don't know what that one's called, is there in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and now you back propagate it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're like, as soon as they see the trickster tricking people, oh, actually, wait, this is an update for me. I didn't realize this before at the beginning of this conversation. Yeah, I see the tricksters. Dude, actually, this is a really good insight for me. This is actually really applicable to my life. So, like, I'm like annoyed because I keep seeing these tricksters. So I guess like the counter to that is to, like, I'm looking in the wrong spot. I need to be looking for the kid. Oh wait, why do I want to hang out with kids?
What are you seeing? Slow down.
Yeah,
Try to-
okay. Kind of just threw a mess at you.
It's exciting for you to make the insights, but we might as well try and explain it. What are you
Yeah.
seeing?
Okay,
At the
so
moment?
I'm seeing like, and this is like in like the meta crisis space in general, and like also specifically, a lot of the places I'm part of that I'm not going to name. Like some, like it's very all over the place.
Communities. Okay.
Sure, yeah. Communities, groups of people.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're saying in these spaces.
Meme plexes, yeah. I see like people get up and like they say these things, like these grandiose things that are like very mundane. I don't want to talk about any of the specifics, and it's kind of hard to not. Maybe we could talk about the Stoa. The Stoa has got like the Stoa's like a public figure, right?
Yep.
So I think we can talk about it without being dicks.
So it's a YouTube channel and community.
It's a place to dialogue and go here around the cutting edge of what's happening in this moment. That's what it is.
I have this nice intro that says exactly those words. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's Stoa. If you guys haven't checked this out, it's like all the like psychotechnologists essentially just go there and give a little speech, or like, yeah, the videos are like around an hour long, and then you have some like regulars there that will do like sessions, or update things. It's like a really good place to like go check stuff out. I definitely recommend it. But yeah, like they do. Okay, yeah. Okay, modern. I don't even know if I should do this one. The problem is, the problem is like I don't want to talk shit about people.
Hmm. All right, but let's do through archetypes then. I'm seeing these tricks, and they keep
they do these like they do these like grandiose things like okay like the meta crisis in general. Everyone's like, we're gonna solve the meta crisis or like we're the meta crisis itself as a frame. Yeah, that's a good one. Like the meta crisis, like this transition, like the transition of humanity 3.0 or whatever. Like they're doing like. There was this 10,000 year cycle of empires, and now we're in this like new age of like this. And like, on one hand, like this is correct. Like you can divide history however you want. Like you can pick an arbitrary point and say, anything before this was this era, and anything after that is this era, and then you find the differences between the eras. And like, this is correct. Like if you do it correctly, at least it's correct. And also.
The Anthropocene transition.
What's that?
It's another one of these meta crises.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the age of the third turning of the wheel. There's another one.
Yeah. And you're doing all these things. Like the Mayan calendar is like one of those like very arbitrary ones where it's like no 2012 is going to be the transition from to like. Everything, and then you can even justify it now, right? Like, so 2012 happens, like nothing happens, or whatever, like a bunch of shit happens.
What do you mean nothing happened? It
was a whole year. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened. That's true, but like it wasn't like also nothing happened. Like you know what I mean? Like it was a year, and like stuff happened in the year, but. It wasn't any different than the year before it, or like it was very different than the year before and after it, but like it wasn't different, right? Like they're all years. Like every year is different. Like that's just how years work. But like you blow this whole thing out of proportion, or like the 9/11, like there was like but I mean like that was like a sort of a transition. Like stuff did actually happen, but I do think maybe some people like there was a difference between before and after. But I mean, 9/11 is a demarcation, not as the event.
Right. So there's been these big announcements.
Yeah. So they do these things, and I'm like, yeah. So like, what was my point? Why was I complaining?
You're annoyed by them, or something.
Yeah, I'm annoyed by them. But why? What is this relevant? Oh yeah. So this is the sneaky. So this to me is like I don't want to call this like a sneaky archetype. What do we say? A trickster archetype. But like it's like. This is like an emperor has no clothes situation. Like, you could pick any time. Like massive transitions in humanity has happened like all the time, right? Like you could say like
technology, information computer technology.
Yeah.
Even the transition to high quality headphones was a huge transition for society.
Well, okay, I don't know. Yeah, like. I wouldn't.
The way that we process information, the availability of audio files. Huge.
Yeah. Like okay, I would have said like something like transistors or like a big.
Right. Even like food availability, spice availability.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the stuff I'm talking about. Like it's like all these things like changed like the nature of humanity and civilization, in profound ways, and like. I think there's a discussion to be had, like, first off, like, what change are you proposing? Like, actually, like, fucking operationalize it so that I can understand what you're talking about. And the second one is, like, a lot of transitions happened, and we've been transitioning a lot. Like, you know, what do you, like, why are you saying this one's more important than the other ones?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, like, you know, like I grew up religious, so like
every change is important when it's happening.
Yeah, and like COVID, right? Like COVID is like a huge transition, but like it's not like a 10,000 year transition of like pre-COVID to like, or maybe it is. Like someone could say that actually no, like this is actually a bigger inflection point than you realize, and like everything is actually different, but. Like, you gotta actually make the case for
working
that.
from home, like we finally implemented proper working from home phenomena, and society can do this thing where we work as a group but work from home.
Right, like that was the fall, like this is, you know, the fall of the Roman Empire, like took some time, and this was, you know, the Byzantine doing this was like the final nail in the coffin, And so you can say the same thing of like COVID, where it's like we've been like sort of doing the home, but then like COVID did it, and now we live in a completely new era where we're disconnected from this. The work has disconnected, and so now people can live in rural areas, and like you like someone could make that argument that this is actually like a significant transition of civilization into like a post. We can essentially be a post-governmental society at a certain point, right? Like
Until there's something where society condenses to big cities because we've needed to go there for work.
Yeah.
And first time where we might need to not do that.
Yeah, like post-city, essentially, yeah. Like we could be a post-city civilization because of... I'm not saying this is true, but someone could make the argument that we're a post-city civilization. Like I have a friend who is a registered therapist in New York. He lives in Toronto, and he does therapy in New York, just telemedicine, right? And so he wants to do stuff here, but he can't work here because it would be illegal for him to work here. Legal. So he works in New York, but he lives here. And like, so like that could be like a legit like transition of like we live in a post-city world. But my point is like what I could do on the Stoa is I can like we could just like sit and hash this out for a couple hours and then be like this is the biggest transition that humanity has ever faced, where we're in this post-city, and then we could just like make a... Actually, this is a good idea. We should do this.
Right, so there's some phenomena of naming the era where people...
naming the era. Like we're in a new era. We're in a post-city era.
Right, and it annoys you specifically that people keep naming the era as like whatever the heck. The era of cryptocurrency. The era of tying your shoes differently. This is the era.
Yeah, and it's like so there's a phenomenon of like people doing that as sort of like a call, like, hey, I'm in this general space, and then they say a bunch of stuff there.
Right. Transhumanism is the era. That's another one.
Yeah,
and then there are other people onto the topic.
Yeah, but then you want to be like, okay, like you're doing this like grandiose ideal thing, but like that's again, that's like an attractor point. So I'm like, okay, I'm like kind of into that, but not exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like they created this frame where I'm like, I'm similar to it, and I haven't been able to find things. Like this is the closest thing that I can find, so I'm gonna go there.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think the people that create that.
There's a skill to, if you become the guy who's named the revolution, you like forever get to be the speaker.
Yeah. Yeah,
so there's a lot of people doing that, and I agree. I can get very sick of the transitional era that is named that someone speaks about, and it like has some implied eminence to it that I don't think is deserved.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about now. This is good. I'm glad you're saying this.
I've seen it. I've also seen people who make their own therapeutic skills. They're like the Eliot method. And I train you to be a trainer in the Eliot method, and have my own hierarchy. And it's okay. I see these people doing this thing. I also see the like
that one makes more sense to me though, because like. If you're actually like gonna practically do stuff, like you, like these things kind of like do make sense actually.
I see like the knees over toes guy, he is the guy of. Usually people say when you do squats, don't put your knees over your toes, like don't lean forward, and he proposes a different model of building resilience around the joints, so that they are resilient for injury, as opposed to never challenge them around the joints. So very carefully do exercises at the edge of your physical capacity, so that you can strength around the joints.
Yeah, that would be a very like counterintuitive method that you would need to have like sort of an exact thing, or otherwise you're going to damage yourself.
So he is the knees over toes guy.
Yeah, but that's like a specific method, right? Like I don't think he's trying to like he's not grandiosing himself. He's not like we need, like, if he was like, we need to revolutionize the way we do exercise, and then, like, then this was his thing, like, I would be like, okay, fine. Like, the revolutionized thing, but, like, if he's, like, all, like, up in this, like, story of stuff, like, it becomes, of, like, we need to stress our joints, like, dude, like, all workout, like, all weight stress your joints, like, He's just saying that you need to stress it in this way, not that way, and that's important, but it's not like, yeah, like that's important, and like he's doing the science to like figure it out, like, but it's like not
Right. So he's permissible, but the era of pick another one. The era of changing. I don't know. The era of vaccines.
yeah, like even the meta modern stuff, like the meta modern is like like if you want to name it, that's fine, but like you gotta have like that open space for discussion, I think, and like differing opinions. Otherwise, you're just being a dick. Like otherwise, you've taken like something really important and you've like locked out everyone else.
Right.
Like
so
you've done it a disservice.
To make the therapeutic question here, there's something that annoys you about people declaring the era, right?
Yeah.
And you project on them
without operationalizing it and like creating a field or something where other people can come in. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's something that really irritates you.
Yeah.
With some open curiosity here, is it, if you imagine yourself naming an era or something, how would you feel about that as an endeavor?
If I named an era, I would feel like fucking like like badass. Like I would love to do that.
Not in the like actually properly named an era, but in the like tacky way that you see other people do. Like if you named.
Yeah, I'd feel like a charlatan, and then I feel like I'd have to like stick to like that would have to be my thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
So
I'd like to like open a new field, like start a new field, but like it's not mine. It's like science, right? Like Newton he invented calculus, but he doesn't own it. He's just like started the thing so that other people could like work in it. Like that's what this stuff is. Like that's science, right? Like if you're like, no, this is my thing, and you guys don't understand it, you're not doing science. You're doing like religion essentially.
Yes. So okay. So if you did the other version, you feel like a charlatan. You've got something where you don't like what they're doing and they look like charlatans. However, earlier in this conversation, we did say that if you hype something up enough, you make it real. So there's some.
Yeah.
There's something here that you can't do in terms of hyping something up enough and making it real enough that other people start to follow it.
I'm very conflicted in this space. Like I don't have like a like because also what they're saying is like they're also adding value as well, right? Which I want to recognize. Like you said, like the hype is part of the value that they're adding.
Bringing something to life potentially.
Yeah.
So there's a question here of if you can't do it, if you can't do that thing, you can't make this. You know, ultimately they're shouting some words into the world, right? And they are. This is the thing, right? But you have stopped yourself from saying such words into the world. You are blocked in some emotional.
Yeah, I am.
You can be blocked because you think it's stupid. You can be blocked because you're ashamed of their will to power. You can be blocked for a bad reason, good reason, but you're blocked. And so it's useful to become self-aware around your block. And just check if the block is a healthy block or an unhealthy block. Because you could be blocked from making creative writing because you don't like your own creativity, or you could be blocked from being a charlatan because you think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's both.
What is there some of the healthy thing that they can do that you can?
Yeah, it's both. It's like I'm not ready to like start naming eras and like starting a thing like that, but like I will be one day. Right. And so like on one hand it's like, and then it's so on one hand it's like, okay, I'm blocked, like I don't feel like I'm aligned enough. Like I feel like these things are like you got to take more responsibility for this stuff, right? Like you're creating hype in people. You're creating like actual movement within people.
Like responsibility for your babies in terms of making a movement?
Yeah, and the responsibility for the effect that you're having on people. Because if you're not doing that, you're just in the same pattern as everyone else, right? Like religion did the same thing. Like you're just the next religion. And not in like a Jesus way, in like a like self-aggrandize, like like an evangelical, like
The Egyptian god sort of way. I am God.
um no, in like an evangelical, like where they're like
Must
on
love that.
TV and they're like I am the thing and I'm doing all this stuff and you're like, well, you're like kind of like a charlatan, but like also you are helping people, but like, you know, like you know, like maybe we could do expected value calculation, but like you're also taking up space as well. Like if when you say like I know God and you start speaking for God, like that is like a we were talked about this reminded me of violence. Like it's that's like violence in a way because like everyone else has to respond to that,
Mm.
right?
The
Or
complexity here where religion became the monopoly on spirit, and they really don't like witch doctors or witches. You know, we burn the witches at the stake.
yeah,
Because they wanted to own hold their monopoly on spirit in some way. I think that
yeah,
through different times in history. So at first it was let's systematize spirit so that anyone can have access to spirit. They just do these things, right? Worship God.
yeah.
You have your connection.
And I'm down for that because that's just creating psychotechnologies essentially. Yeah.
Right, and then there was another thing that happened where it was a dislike of other psychotechnologies, of the like witch doctor, like you can't practice that.
It's like others. Yeah, it's like other systems. Yeah.
We're against that other system.
And like it's fine. Like I think it's fine to be against it. Like to be like I don't think it's a good system. But then it's the next step. The thing you're about to say is like when it says
like, burn them at the stake.
Yeah, then it's like burning them at the stake. So now it's like okay, you've resorted back to violence.
Mm.
And
well, there's something to be said for maybe if we get everyone practicing the same religion, then there'll be more peace in the world.
yeah.
As a theory, I don't think that actually works, but it's a nice theory.
Yeah, like it doesn't work. Like it just doesn't. Like it doesn't work. And like, yeah, fine as a theory maybe, but like we've had too much history for anyone to not.
Now we do, but historically, when the
Yeah.
religion decided to have holy wars.
Yeah, but I'm not annoyed at those people because they're all dead and gone. Like, let's move on with their lives. It's like the living people that bug me.
So,
Because the dead people, they did their best and now they're done. But the living people are changeable.
Fair enough. Looking at your, if you look at the people who declare an era, right? You've done some of your relationship to them, you've projected onto them. You're like, they're doing something stupid, I don't like it, whatever. One thing you can do is you can re-own that. You can take that back to yourself, be like, well, actually, I'm going to re-own all of my stupid projection of them being stupid. They're doing a thing. They're just doing a thing. And I can make it neutral. Right?
Okay, how do I do that? Walk me through.
I'm going to take back. It's sort of like a mental movement. So if you imagine one of these people who has declared the year, and you imagine all of your projection on them, all the bits, and you can just take that back to yourself. Like, let me bring that back to me. Right?
What does that mean, bring it back to me? Like, I'm annoyed with them. So, like, I can experience my annoyingness, and I can, like, take responsibility for, like, that experience.
Right. So taking responsibility, instead of it being on them, a recognition that that's you putting that out there.
Okay, so I'm annoyed at them, and I'm going to take ownership over that, like, annoyance that I'm sending out into the universe.
Right, and then what you can do is you can bring it back to yourself. You're like, I'm going to, as I recognize some of the annoyance out there as me, I'm going to re-own that and take it back. And I'm going to choose not to be annoyed, because I can just choose to do other things.
Wait, how do I take it back? Like, the annoyance is directed. I don't want to direct the annoyance at me. Because I'm not annoyed at myself.
Yes,
not true.
Right. So, something like, imagine you're throwing a spear, right? You're throwing your spear of annoyance at them. You can just not throw the spear. But there needs to be some recognition that you are, in fact, the one throwing the spear, as opposed to there's annoyance out there.
So I was feeling it like projected outwards, and then when you said just don't throw the spear, it's like kind of dissipating.
Right.
It's still the annoyance is dissipating, but it still feels like there's like this like ball of energy out there. It's kind of like a pier projecting outwards. I guess kind of like how your writing still exists outside somewhere.
There's still some more work to do, but that's the start. The start is that we've stopped throwing the spear.
Okay.
So there's a little bit more here, which is some of when someone.
Okay, yeah. Now that I stopped, I'm feeling like I have to take responsibility for this, which is obviously incorrect because these are not me, and I'm not able to really do anything about that.
Right. So there's something of a shifting of your energetic experience where you were busy doing this project out thing, and now you're like, what do I do with this? I have extra energy that was arranged to not be annoyed at people, and now I'd like it to be somewhere else.
Well, no, it's or maybe I'm not there yet, or maybe I'm not noticing the thing that you're saying yet. But I guess there's more stuff happening. It's like I'm annoyed, and then I realize like the annoyance is coming from, I guess, like entitlement or something. Like
right.
I should
trace it back in you as to what you're annoyed about and where's it coming from.
Yeah. And then it's like, and then that's coming from like a powerless, like I should be able to. It's because, and then we're coming back to the back propagation as well, where I'm like, look, I've seen this before, right? Like all these things that are happening, like I grew up in a religion, like this is, like I can see the things happening, right? And I can see like the tactics and like the mistakes and the stuff being done, because like the Orthodox Jews believe that they're also like the like light upon the nations, and that they're leading the way and they're doing life correctly, and their science isn't necessarily great, but like they're not dumb people, like they're very intelligent people.
Right. So there's another part of this equation. So you've taken back your projection of being irritated, and there is something on the other side as well. When someone declares you are living in the era of, I called it this thing, the era of vaccine.
Because they used to say that, like, you're living the era of the Messiah, like the Messiah will be coming soon.
Right. So there is some imposing upon that other people do on you when they name the era.
Yeah.
So you also have a chance to give that back. In the same way that you took
how
this.
do I do that?
Similar. You recognize the movement of
them giving to me
obligation to, right, and you return it. You'll be like, no thanks, you can keep it.
Okay, so we're living in the era of. I really do believe we're living in the era of psychotechnologies. Oh my god, that could be the thing I can name.
What have I done? I've made a monster.
Oh my god.
Right, but let's say metamodernism, let's say...
yes, okay, no, you're right. I'm going to give back... Yeah, no, all these things, like, these are all good ideas. No, like, metamodernism, like all these things, like, they're all, like, legitimately, like, I legitimately like them. These are very good, they're good authors that wrote good things, that are good ideas, that I spent a lot of time thinking about and integrating. But, like, they're not the thing.
Yeah.
The thing is, or at least they're not the thing that I'm looking at. I think the leverage point is that we're living in the era of psychotechnologies, and I'm not the king of it. It's a science. There is no king.
Maybe an era of people coming to a self-awareness around mental phenomena?
It's not that. That's already existed. There has already been...
There's more right now than ever before, and we started to pay more attention to it than much of the concrete realm, which used to bother us. Like, I think maybe 50 years ago, having a 9-to-5 job and earning good money and having a stable family was the big thing. And then there was also the 60s and the psychedelic era. There was a bunch of things going on. But now we are having this mental health revolution very early. Like, teenagers know about mental health in ways that I only found out like the last couple of years. And it's just normal. Anyway, those are my opinions.
Yeah, but when I say mental health, I don't mean to invoke. The thing is it's the thing that
Mental.
you're using is like mental health is like there's this frame around mental health, and I'm like, well, the frame around mental health is a frame, and it's a frame that people should learn, right? For sure, like it's a good frame, but it's just a frame, and there are serious holes in it, it's missing serious chunks of reality.
Sure.
Which
Right,
all
so-
frames are, right? Like I'm not dissing it. I'm wanting to include it is what I'm trying to do, but not.
Right.
It's not the king, right? This is the era of psychotechnologies, and this is human. This is the next stage of human evolution, is where the individuals are able to, where individual people are able to take responsibility for their own psychotechnology.
The way they operate their own minds.
People are able to take responsibility for the way they operate their own minds, and I want to be a really cool person in that space. Right, I'm not like that, but that's the thing, it's not me, this is the thing that is existing that will come into fruition, and I back propagated well enough that I wouldn't say I'm the first, obviously, obviously all these other people beat me to it, but I think that's the point, is that they all beat me to it, they're all here. And this is what we're doing. And now I've named it. Sort of.
Right, so we've done the reowning, you took your irritation back. Now, is there any more returning the other eras to themselves that we need to do?
This is fun, I'm enjoying doing this with you.
Right, well, this is a therapeutic process, right?
Yes. So there's a little bit, but it's the general gestalt of it, I think, is kind of dissipated. And then there's kind of I'm on the Stoa page, and I'm looking at all the faces, and I'm like, I think you're doing this wrong. I think you're doing this wrong. Well, then I'm seeing integral theory, and I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about this. But it's sort of individual stuff. And it's individual stuff, which is actually fun though. That's the interesting thing. That's an annoyance in the same way that if I'm playing chess with someone and they have a good move, I'm annoyed. But it's a fun annoyance.
Right. Okay, so we've got the
Okay, you shifted the whole frame for me. Yeah, thank you. I like hanging out with you.
Free therapy. I like free therapy. So.
This isn't therapy. No. See, that's the thing. First off, this isn't therapy. Therapy is a regulated healthcare for the internet and everyone else. Therapy is a regulated healthcare act, which is not what we're doing at all, because we're not therapists. Second off, therapists can't do this shit. This is fake news. This is misinformation, and I am not pleased that this is coming from you, because therapists can't do this stuff.
This is the stuff that I do in coaching. It's not therapy. It's coaching.
Yeah.
This is the sort of thing that I will do with people in coaching.
Yeah.
I'm irritated by a subset of people who are, like you said, they're doing this declare the era thing. Now, usually when I work with people in coaching, it's more personal to their lives.
This is personal to my life, but yeah. I spend a lot of time thinking about psychotechnologies.
You don't necessarily know all the people who are doing the irritating thing, who are doing the irritating.
Oh, I don't know them personally, no.
Yeah. So it would probably be more examples of people.
But I still take it personally, even though I don't know. Even though I don't know them and they've never heard of me before, I still take it personally.
This is right. So this is the process, and this is something I would take people through. So we've done the irritation, we've reowned, we've returned back what was projected, what you were receiving, and then there's usually something left.
Yeah. What is it? Or do I have to figure it out myself? Is that part of it?
What are you noticing? And we'll see if we can. I can give more pointers, but what are you noticing for?
Yeah. So I'm noticing a disconnect. There's a thing in my head that I haven't given attention, and then there's a thing in my body. So I do feel much more relaxed, Like I feel like I have like a much better orientation towards this.
Mm.
And yeah. So it's like kind of like now I'm framing the problem correctly, and so I want like I have an impulse to start tackling it and an impulse to like chill.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean, like don't just like jump in because you're gonna jump into a random frame, but like to sort of sit with it
Mm.
and let. Like I just want to be a cool guy in this space. Like I don't even want to be like king of the psychonauts. But like
Mm.
like what is it that I like? What is it I want to do? It's like I don't know.
Right.
There's a lot of like real stuff, I guess.
So one way to think about this is
Sort of like less psychology now.
a mush. You had a crossover, so your stuff was over there, their stuff was on you, right?
Yeah.
So we've undone that thing, but there's still all this like, now what do we do with the stuff? Right? Their stuff is back with them, your stuff is back with you, and now there's this.
Yeah. What do we do with all this stuff?
Like,
Yeah.
how do I rearrange it? Now that I've sorted out what's mine and what's theirs, how do I want to be organized? And of course, I don't have this answer for you. This is an opportunity for you to like not put it straight back, but to be like, oh, I would like to grow it up like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or what you can maybe notice is
We should start it. We should, yeah. So I think I should start a YouTube channel called Psychotechnologies Live, where we like try to figure this stuff out.
right.
And then, yeah, you should join me because you're good at this stuff too.
Right, but is there more? Is there more in terms of a new order of this phenomenon? You've got a bunch of energy that was busy like avoiding being oppressed by some stupid era naming person, and all of that energy has to go somewhere else now.
Well, sort of, because like all the faces looking at me like I'm not taking it personally anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more like they all exist as their own. Like all their energy is their energy, and all my energy is my energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like the energy is less violent, like less storm. I mean, violent like a storm.
That's interrupting each other, right?
Yeah, it's like less stormy. With like the crashing and the waves, like that stuff is kind of gone. And I can still feel the balls of energy. It's interesting because yeah, like I can still feel their energy, like the stuff that they're doing, and like it does. Like I'm not saying this is what we should do, but it does bring to mind that like we should like. No, I'm not saying we should, but like I guess a possibility is to like go through each one and be like this is what they're doing. Like this is like the synopsis of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, that's not a bad idea. But like this is the synopsis of it. I'm spitballing here, all right? No, I'm not saying let's do a thing. I'm just sort of spitballing and talking.
I know.
Okay, so now I'm just in a talking space where I can just imagine and say whatever I want, fantasy, whatever, all that stuff we were talking about earlier, monkey mind meditation. The monkey mind meditation is what we're doing now. So monkey mind meditation says that we should take all these people and we should just be like, here's the summary on them. Here's what they're doing. Here's like the couple frames that they have. Here's where the manifolds are. Like here's their website, I guess, or whatever. Like I just had to like follow up with that.
Yep. We can review a variety of psychotechnologies. Have them in a nice big list where if we get a comment, we would become a useful directory of what other people are out there.
Yeah, because this is the era of psychotechnologies, and we need to. No, but like I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like no, but I'm still in the frame. I'm still in the spitballing frame, so I'm allowed to be as serious as I want without it being like existing outside this frame necessarily, which I'll think about and then decide. But yeah, like this is the see, this is the shit I'm talking about. Like where like people are like declare the stuff and then they do it and it's like a thing. But like we created that frame first, where it's like within this monkey mind frame, so people don't need to freak out about it. They can just entertain it, and then decide what they want. Which is the thing that I think we would want to be doing. Which is like, here are like a bunch of like cool psychotechnology people that are doing cool psychotechnology stuff, or whatever, right? Like however we demarcate it. But that's a whole field. Like essentially, like how did like psychology is like a new field, right? Like when psychology existed, like what is it, like late 1800s or something? It's like I guess Freud just sort of, I don't know, I wish I knew the history a little bit better, but I think Freud just is like
sort of treated as the father of, it's not that he was right, it's that he was the first guy to put his theories out there. And since they're like, oh, we don't think he was right, but he was the first to put a huge body of theories out there.
Yeah.
On which other people could do similar in like also putting their theories out.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't necessarily want to create like a whole bunch of theories from scratch. Like that's a lot of work. And like already a lot of people are doing that. It's more like, I guess like publishing all the theories or something, and then having like creating like a peer review process and like
documenting the existing theories.
Yeah, but like not like, because like, so there's documenting like is this still interesting to you? Oh, I just wanted to check it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a while. We've been here for a while already.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, this has gone a lot longer. Right? Because you opened up the space, so now all this stuff is coming out. Normally, my conversations aren't as long and in depth, so I don't normally get here. Which is like another thing I think I'm missing from my life, but whatever. Right, so everyone is documenting their own ideas, right? So we don't need to do that. It's like turning it into a proper field, like a proper like field of study. So like psychology has like tenets, and like you can agree or disagree or whatever, but like, you know, you kind of have like the big thinkers, people know what they are, and then you have like testing. And that's the thing I think psychotechnology can have above psychology, is like, if you think of psychology as doing like these like massive double-blind studies or whatever, and like heavily regulated, psychotechnology is like much like smaller, quicker stuff. Where like you come in for like a weekend, or you come or like circling, right? Like to become like a circling facilitator, it's not like you first off, you're like, circling is awesome, and you spend a lot of time circling, and then you spend a lot of time practicing circling, and then you're kind of done, right? Like it's versus like psychology is like an 8-year degree to become like a like a clinical psychologist. Like that stuff is crazy. But as circling, it's like, what is it, like a year with like an hour a week or something? Or maybe like, if you're not experienced, maybe it's like 2 years, something like that. But it's just like a smaller sort of thing. I don't know. Whatever. This is a hard problem, and I don't know the answer. That's what I'm gonna say. This is a hard problem. The era of psychotechnologies is upon us, and if we don't like engage with it properly, then what's gonna happen is either like we're just gonna get another branch of like psychology, or more likely people are just gonna like dissipate, like it's just trying to boil the ocean. Or it's like a bunch of individual people, which is also fun. I don't know. I kind of like nodded myself, I think. But yeah, okay. Cool.
Good ideas. They might need to rearrange a little bit more. Like, obviously.
Yeah, I don't have the answers. So. I'm declaring it a new era, but I have nothing useful to say about it.
The era of uselessness.
No. The era of psychotechnologies. But wait, no, you have to do the mystique thing. This is what they all do, right? They all do the mystique. Like when they don't know stuff, they just like talk vaguely. So they have to be like there's stuff in the works here. There's the era of psychotechnologies upon us. What exactly that means and the applications and how it's going to look. It's an ever evolving, complex process that we realize as we go through it. And there are certain people that are a little bit ahead of the curve on this. Some of them I know, some of them I don't know. But
We'll let
it's
you know
really
when
important,
we know.
and you gotta stay tuned to find out more. Boom! See, that's how they do it. That's how they get you. And it's all true. Everything I said was true.
Uncanny likeness of something.
Sorry?
There's an uncanny likeness of everyone declaring eras.
Yeah, and because I'm playing what's it called? See, I'm playing that like the sneak, the trickster.
Yes.
I don't know why I keep thinking of it as sneak, but like it's like the trickster and the child blend together, where it's like, oh, I'm tricking you by like just stating the obvious.
Okay. So if there is my hunch, I have a hunch that there was a reason why you organized the way you did in terms of being irritated and taking the obligation from others, and there may be something left in terms of reprocessing that
For sure.
and organizing those drives within you so that they're healthy. Or if we've just separated them, they may just cross back, they may just reorganize. You may just do the same projection move on someone else when they come along with a new era thing. Right? But what we need is a healthy relationship to people declaring the eras. We need a healthy ability for you to let people declare their eras and not take it personally. You need all this stuff. And in order to do that, we need to wonder like how you got here anyway. And this will be a bit of a longer work. Maybe I'll leave it to you. But how did you get here anyway? And
dude, that is a fucking long story.
And in that sense, it's important to recognize your journey through life took you to this mix-up.
Yeah, like that's
rather than like I was in this mix-up and wrong. This journey into life took me to here, and that's okay. And I must unravel.
It's better than okay. Like I did this on purpose.
Because you were annoyed by all the people who kept obligating you with eras and
this goes way back. Like this whole journey like is like this is long. This is like childhood. Like I don't even know this story. Like it's so long.
Right. Okay. So this is the last step of completing this particular stack of technology is to re-examine that childhood and integrate the bits of it so that you're more.
It's not just like Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt you.
It's okay. The truth of reality, right? We've undone the knot, and now we're gonna recognize the first time that you in fact tied the knot, and recognize and see the world clearer right from the beginning.
Yeah. You can do this. You.
Sure.
Like not now. I think we're coming up on the hour, but yeah.
I can give you some clues to do what you want to do on your own. On your own, you probably want to imagine in that moment when you made the first decision to cross project, and be compassionate towards the version of you that did that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm. that's really personal. I don't know if I'm gonna say that on the.
You don't have to tell me, but what you need to do is be compassionate towards the person that made that confusion, and there's an opportunity here for something like reparenting. So in that moment, if you could have provided an adult that explained to you what exactly was going on and gave you a chance, like, here, let me just explain it. I know this seems confusing, but here's what's going on. He thinks he's the Messiah, and he thinks this, and you don't have to take it. If you have the chance to come to relive that memory moment with an extra adult reasoning capacity overlay, reprocessing it, putting in its correct orientation. And then you should be able to there may be a younger part of you going, what? That's still confusing, and you can explain it more until that younger part of you is like, oh, I get it. Yeah. Rather than leaving behind a younger part of you in your memories, you get to reintegrate them to who you are now.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're suggesting sort of like an IFS work with the inner child that made this thing. But the thing is, like, this knot is not one person's fault. Like,
no, it doesn't have to be. The point is we're here to repair.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I had an aversion to it, but they're like, because I'm like, oh, that's not the work that needs to be done in the world, but like, it kind of is, though.
It's all the work that needs to be done, and the work that needs to be done keeps coming forwards anyway.
Yeah.
You do this, and then the more important stuff comes forward. But this is important for you to see clearly the next steps anyway.
Yeah.
I maintain that provided you're not, like, for example, biased towards strong emotion or towards drama, then whatever is coming forward is the work that needs to be done. So if you are biased towards people who are outraged, then your world will start to be filled with people who are outraged, and you'll be like, why does this outrage keep happening? Until eventually you get to the root of outrage and you're like, oh, I see, I've been feeding my little outrage demon, and encouraging everyone around me that as I pay only attention to outrage, I'm too busy ignoring everything else, and the only way the messages get through to me is if people are outraged at me. And so I've been living in this weird dynamic where nothing's important unless I'm putting out the fire of outrage. Yeah. And I've just been feeding the fire of outrage.
So, what you're saying is hitting very close to home. Not the outrage specifically, but like that general pattern of
right.
You're
and
listening to.
There's a deepening into, like, as I realize the pattern has been outrage all this time, I stop feeding outrage and suddenly I'm free of it. And I get to move to the deeper work. But it's what's here. It's always what shows up that is the thing.
Yeah. It's a weird, like, counterintuitive thing, but yeah, I think that's correct. It's like
Psychotechnologies.
Yeah.
Closing remarks. Closing wisdom.
It feels good to be living in the era of psychotechnologies, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's another thing. People just keep seeing all the problems, and, like, I'm not saying not to see problems, but, like, also see the good in it, like the good in life.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good place to end.
Cool. I will stop the stream now.